Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm going to be doing some French Country Christmas thrift flips. For my first project, I'm going to be using this wooden frame that I had in my stash. I've already taken the glass out. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to start pushing down the little backing bits that usually hold in the glass and the backing board. I want to push those down because I am going to actually be adding the backing board to the front of the frame to make it look more like a panel. Now this type of frame allows me to do this. It has a little recessed bit on the inside there. Not all frames are going to be perfect for this kind of technique, but I was definitely happy to see that this was something that I could do. I am going to be using some Gorilla Super Glue gel around the edges, and I'm also going to be using some hot glue as well for that immediate hold. I'm running the Gorilla Super Glue gel on the inside part of the frame where the backing is going to sit. And then once I have a good amount of that down, I'm going to go in and add some hot glue. As I said, the super glue is going to have that permanent hold. The hot glue is going to give it that immediate hold. I'm then going to pick up the backing board and I'm going to press it down in the center, applying pressure. After wiping off the excess glue with a wet wipe, I turned the frame over and I added some more hot glue around the back inside of the frame as well. When that was set and dry, I took out Paint Couture's grounded mineral paint and I'm going to pour some of that out into a container, and then I'm also going to be adding some salt wash. So this is a texture additive, a powder that you add to your paint. It thickens it up and it allows you to create texture. I'm then going to use a chip brush and I'm going to start dabbing and stippling that onto my surface. I'm going to be adding it and really focusing it on the center part of the project today, and as I said, doing that dabbing and stippling motion. And because I have that salt wash mixed in with my paint, the peaks that we're creating are going to hold their shape, and I'm going for a really old world look too. I then took out Paint Couture's buttercream chalk paint. I'm going to pour some of that out and I'm going to add some of my salt wash mixture to that just to thicken that paint up. I'm going to stir it really well, and then once I've done that, I'm going to start taking some of that out and sort of smearing it on my center surface there. I'm then going to use my IOD paint blade, and because I already have that dry textured grounded mineral paint mixture down, the paint is skipping over some of that texture and creating this really cool look. This is something I've done a few times. I love that it kind of reminds me of old plaster, and since I am going for more of a panel look, I think that this definitely fit in with the look that I was trying to achieve. So I'm just going to continue to add that buttercream mixture to my surface and then use that paint blade to spread it around. If you're going to do this, it will be up to you how much of the surface underneath you allow to show through. When that was dry, I took out IOD's Classic Elements mold. I've already dusted this beaded trim design with cornstarch, and now I'm working my Darsa air dry clay into that particular design. I'm then going to flex the mold. Sometimes I then also flip it over to help get some of that casting out. Gravity is definitely a big help. And I'm going to just continue to cast these until I have enough to go around the inner frame that's going to cover the edge of that backing board. I then took out IOD's Trimmings 3 mold and I'm working my Darsa air dry clay into one of the trim designs. This is definitely my favorite trimming mold. I'm then going to flex that and flip the mold over and start pulling it back. And again, gravity is definitely a big help here when you are working with intricate designs like this. I'm going to continue to cast these until I have enough to go around the outside of my frame. Now these are interconnecting designs, so I'm able to continue that pattern. I'm adding down my Sealy's Quickset wood glue to my surface, and then I'm going to press my trimmings castings down into that glue. And you can see here that I'm able to to match up the other casting that I made so that I can continue that pattern, and then I'm going to use a palette knife to cut off the excess, and I'll be able to use that other piece in another spot. I'm not going to have these going over the corners because I'm going to cast another mold to go in those sections. So I'm just going to continue adding glue on the outside frame first, and then once I have that sorted, I'm going to start gluing down that beaded trim as well. If I inspire you to try any of the Paint Couture products used in today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. I will put it in the description and on the screen. I just get a little thank you from Paint Couture in return. Once I had all of my castings glued down and in place, I took out the Classic Elements mold again, and I'm going to be making a casting of this almost sort of fleur-de-lis style design. I'm going to be casting 4 of those to go in each of the corners. Once I have those castings ready, I will use my wood glue and I will glue those in place. I let my castings dry for a few hours, but before they were completely dry, I came in with some of my grounded mineral paint and salt wash mixture, and I'm going around the edges first. I'm dabbing and stippling that mixture on to the frame section where we don't have any castings. I want that to have a vintage look to it well and a textured finish. And then I continued adding some more of that mixture over the rest of my castings. Now these are not completely dry, so I do still have to be a bit gentle, but painting them before they are completely dry can help with shrinking. I also added the paint to the beaded trim on the inside. I let that dry overnight, and then I took out IOD's new Gloria paint inlay. This is a beautiful French country style paint inlay, black and white designs of all different shapes and sizes. Some of them are very festive, some of them can be more neutral, and they've also included some designs for fall or even Halloween. Some of these could be used as well. I took out this beautiful wreath design. This is going to be going in the center of our project, and I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in Satin to use my paint inlay today. So I'm laying down a generous coat. I want to make sure that I have a nice amount there. I do have chalk paint down, so that is a bit more porous, so I need to keep that in mind. And then I'm going to flip that paint inlay over and put it in my medium design side down. That grid should be facing up at you. I'm going to gently smooth that out, trying to make sure that there's good contact, and then I'm going to use a mister to mist my design, and then also a wet wipe to help smooth out any more wrinkles. I also then grabbed my brayer to try and smooth it out a bit further. I did get a little bit of smearing, but I'm not too worried about that. A bit later you'll see that I'm able to remove that. I let my paint inlay dry. I then misted it again, and after about 60 seconds I started to pull that paint inlay away. This is definitely the most satisfying part. Now, I didn't get a perfect transfer of that image, but I love the vintage look that has been achieved. As I said before, I got a little bit of smearing, so I was able to come in with a wet wipe and pull that back so it wasn't as obvious. I'm not too worried again about that because I don't need this to look perfect. I let it dry completely, and then I came in with Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in Satin, and I'm running a very light hand over the top of the paint inlay. Now, it is recommended that you use a spray sealer because you can get smearing. You can see I'm sort of wiping back some of those little smears that are appearing. It wasn't as bad as I have had happen in other occasions. I was just feeling very impatient today and I didn't want to take it outside and spray it. But if you are worried about this happening, definitely spray on a clear coat first so that you don't risk smearing. But I think mine turned out okay in the end, thankfully. I then took out Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze, and I'm going to be applying that over the top of the border around the outside. The grounded mineral paint has a built-in top coat, so I am able to wipe back as much or as little as I want. And I'm loving how the glaze is really highlighting all of the details in that beautiful Trimmings mold. So I'm just going to continue to add that glaze around the entire outside of the frame and repeating that same process of wiping it back. As I'm working my way around adding the glaze, I also added some to the beaded trim and a little bit onto our inside design where the wreath is, but I didn't put any over the top of the wreath itself because I still want that to be a bit more of that beautiful brighter cream color. I let that dry completely, and then I came in with Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic. I'm starting by adding it over the top of the beaded trim design on the inside, working my way around. I do have that satin clear coat over the top of the inner section of our artwork here, so if I make any mistakes I can go in with a wet wipe and I can wipe that back. I only did one coat on the beaded trim design on the inside, and then I also started adding it to the trim work around the outside. I'm adding it to the center of that trim design and also to the other sections as well. When that was dry, I added some of that Bronze Luxe Metallic over the top of the border on the ribbon on the paint inlay. I'm just going in there and very carefully adding little bits of that bronze. And if I happen to go outside any of those sections, remember I can wipe it back. We do have that clear coat down. I really feel that adding the bronze to the paint inlay in the center brings the center and the frame around the outside all together. And here's a look at our finished wreath artwork. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I haven't had a chance to use the Gloria paint inlay until now, and I'm so glad that I did. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my next project, I'm going to be working on this little plastic violin that I picked up for just $2 while thrifting. I'm going to begin by priming it with Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer in white. I'm going to give it one coat, let it dry for about an hour, and then I will apply a second coat and give that a few hours to dry. This surface is very slick, so adding this primer is going to allow my paint to stick well and to stay there. When that primer was completely dry, I took out Paint Couture's Buttercream chalk paint. Now this is the one that I've mixed with the salt wash from the first project, so it is a bit thicker. So we're going to get a bit more texture. I'm going to be applying it over the top of the entire violin. I'm going to be doing 2 coats, and I'm loving the texture that that salt wash is creating because this is just a plastic piece. It doesn't have much character, so having that salt wash and seeing those brush strokes is definitely going to make it a bit more unique. When it was completely dry, I took out IOD's new Tinsel Transfer. I thought about using this little angel, but I was going to have to cut off too much of it, and I thought that would be a waste. So instead, I cut out this design on the left that has a lot of beautiful swirls, and I'm going to be using that. I'm going to cut and separate the 2 different sections apart so that it makes it easier for me to use them. And here you can see I have them positioned where I want them to go. I'm going to cut that top one in half there. I don't want it going over the top of the center of the bowstrings, and then I'm going to go in and start rubbing the transfer. Now with the Tinsel Transfer, you just want to rub and burnish in those sections where the transfer design is. If you go outside those sections, sometimes you'll get a bit of extra of that gold foil. I've sort of wrapped that design around the edge of the violin there. It doesn't matter if I have a few sections that are a little bit broken, and I'm going to repeat the same process on the left hand side as well. I really like how the curves of the transfer design complement the curves of the violin. I think that this transfer really was made for something like this. Once I have that top left piece in place, I'm going to add the bottom piece. This time I decided to have the entire transfer go across the center part of the violin as well. And again, just remember, take your time and only do that rubbing on top of your design. I like to use the corner of my transfer stick for this. To seal my transfers in, I'm using Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in Satin. You definitely want to use a satin or a gloss so that these beautiful gold foil transfers maintain their shine. So I just went in and just did one coat, and I ended up adding it over the top of the entire violin. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Crackle Step 1 and I'm going to be brushing that on over my entire project, excluding that center section where the strings are. I'm going to apply one even coat. I'm then going to let that dry for about 30 minutes. It will become sticky to the touch, and then I'll add Crackle Step 2 over the top, just in the same way that we did with the first one, in the same areas. I gave that about an hour and then took out Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze. I'm going to be applying that over the entire violin, and I am loving how this sits down in those beautiful cracks that we created. I'm using a wet wipe to wipe back the excess. This is going to make it more obvious that glaze is sitting down in those cracks, but adding the glaze is also helping highlight the details of the violin. This may be a plastic piece, but it was definitely well shaped, and I'm loving how it's highlighting the strings as well. So I'm also adding it to the handle of the violin as well and wiping that back. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Antique Gold, and I'm going to be adding that to the details on the front of the violin. I don't know what these are called, so any of the musicians watching, let me know what these are called. They're just beautiful details. So I've highlighted those with the Antique Gold, and I'm going to then start adding the gold to the strings that are going up the center there. I'm not going for full coverage here. I'm happy for it to skip and miss certain sections that will add to that vintage look that we're going for. And then I'm also going to add it in a few places on the top part of the handle. I then took out my classical Christmas stamp. This is from IOD's most recent release. I'm adding IOD permanent black ink, and I'm going to stamp that on this simple brown cardboard tag. I want to add this to the violin. I'm then going to thread through some golded corded ribbon through that tag, and I'm tying that onto the violin. I'm going to do a double bow, and then once I'm happy with how that looks, I'm going to add a chiffon ribbon and just tie a simple bow. And here's a look at our finished festive violin. I really love how this turned out. I've never done a project like this before, but it was definitely a lot of fun. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my final project today, I'm going to be using this little urn. It has a little cherub on it. I love the shape of it, but I don't love the color. So I'm going in with that grounded mineral paint and salt wash mixture. The surface had a little bit of a porous feel to it, and the salt wash does help paint stick to slicker surfaces. So I'm not worried about my paint adhering. I'm going to work my way around the little urn, adding one even coat. And in some places I am doing a little bit of stippling because there are a few little chips out of this urn. This is going to help hide it. And then when that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's new aged bronze metallic stencil paste. So this is a much thicker mixture. Just as the name suggests, this can be used over the top of stencils. But I wanted to see how it would go on top of my paint, and it is so much thicker. It gives a little bit of texture. It is really gorgeous. I'm not going for full coverage. I'm okay if I miss a few little areas. That will just look like age and wear and tear. But I'm going to just do one coat. That's how highly pigmented and beautiful this new metallic paste is. And then I'm also going to be adding some of that to the inside of my urn as well. When that bronze was dry, I took a little Christmas tree that I had in my stash. This is a white one. I'm going to just shove that into the urn, and then I'm going to take out some gold ribbon that I also had in my stash, and I'm going to thread that through the handles on the urn, and I'm just going to tie a simple bow. I apologize for the terrible angle there. It was a little bit tricky to film. And here's a look at our finished little urn. I think this turned out really sweet, and that Christmas tree was the perfect addition. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video and that it's given you some ideas on how you can use the new IOD release to create some French country Christmas decor for your home. Let me know if you had a favorite project from today. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find most of the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.